By now we all know it, right? The memory market has just gone bonkers. Modules like this that were once inexpensive are now going for some obscene prices. Moving to bare modules like these ones has become unbelievably expensive too. And a lot of that is due, of course, to this AI push. More specifically, this dude who ended up buying almost 40% of the world's supply of DRAM. And we as gamers, well, we're paying the price. And because of that, if you're building or upgrading a PC, getting hosed right now almost feels like a foregone conclusion. But what if it's not? What if I told you there's a way, if you're desperate enough to get a build done and save hundreds upon hundreds of dollars on memory right now? Thankfully, we probably found a good solution for you guys to at least get your builds or upgrades off the ground. And no, that doesn't mean buying an old generation CPU where its platform is basically dead-ending you and DDR4 memory. No, this is something completely different. So this is a relatively cheap SODIMM memory module. On the other hand, this is a SODIMM to UDIMM adapter. So the idea is to take these relatively inexpensive SODIMMs that are from laptops or NASAs or whatever it is and pop it into this adapter, and it adapts it to a desktop system. So it might sound crazy and look absolutely hideous compared to all those fancy RGB kits out there, but we've tried this hack on Ryzen 7000, 9000, Intel LGA 1700 and LGA 1851 systems without any serious issues. It's mostly plug and play with only a few small speed bumps that you might run into. Anyways, this is how you can leverage your sort of search ingenuity in local markets on Kijiji Marketplace here in Canada, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, even local buy and sell forums in order to combine these really inexpensive adapters with SODIMM memory in order to get your build off the ground while not destroying your budget. But want to know the best part? It's actually really, really cheap compared to buying UDIMM modules or desktop memory, for now at least. And when compared to regular sticks, at least 8 gig DDR5 SODIMMs rated for 4800 can be found just about everywhere for a steal, again, when compared to desktop memory. That's because people are, or have been until now, pulling them from their laptops or even NAS devices to upgrade to more capacity. 16 gig modules, of course, are out there too, but they're more expensive, though still an option if you want 32 gigs on the cheap. And yes, you can even find plenty of well-priced SODIMM modules here in Canada too. And you know what? Maybe you're building a PC and you might not have even thought of this yet. You might have some DDR5 modules that you've used from a previous laptop or, like I said, a NAS device that you could just repurpose for this without having to go online and buy some used modules. Meanwhile, those DDR5 adapters, well, they're a little bit harder to find. They're somewhat rare on Amazon and often overpriced, but you can find them for about 10 bucks or 15 bucks on eBay, AliExpress, and Alibaba. I'll leave a link to some of them down below. And look, before I go on, I'm going to say this again. This is a Hail Mary. This is a last-ditch solution for somebody who might absolutely need a new PC or to upgrade their current solution. This is not going to be a end all for everybody. There are some very serious constraints that you need to know about. First of all, 4800 mega transfers per second seems to be the sweet spot with this setup on the modules and adapters we tried, even if they were rated to run higher. Anything above that can sometimes lead to errors, especially on some AMD CPUs, which historically have a bit weaker memory controllers. We did have some success running at 5600 though. Intel, on the other hand, was a bit more forgiving, and their CPUs were able to run consistently at 5600 or even more with a bit of massaging. On the other hand, we were able to tighten timings on both platforms quite a bit to balance out that loss of bandwidth. But like everything, your mileage may vary in a big way. You could get above those speeds or below them. And the adapters, there's something you need to know about those as well, because we've done a ton of testing now for compatibility, and we came to a couple of realizations. First of all, Robert, you can come in here. This one with the cutout will max out at 4800. This literally is the maximum that it will get to. On the other hand, this one without the cutout, it typically got to 5600 at tight times without any problems whatsoever. On the other hand, this black one, which is actually a newer revision, this one can consistently get above 5600. We had it topping out at 5800 at one point. So far, Every single adapter and memory module that we've tried has booted up without any issue whatsoever. The problem though lies at the speed at which it boots. And this system right here is a perfect example of that. So if you look over here on the side, this one actually booted up to 3,200 megatransfers per second. But you can really overcome that. If you go into the memory frequency settings, you can simply set it manually to 4,800. And you just go with that. It should boot into Windows without too much of a problem. It just needs a little bit of time, at least on this AMD system, for memory training. Another problem that we sort of encountered is actually a physical one. So these adapters end up adding sort of like a ton of height to the modules. And that causes you, at least on air coolers at least, to push the fan up to, like, sometimes here on the D15, an insane amount. And also, ITX systems that are usually Z height limited, you're going to get into a little bit of an issue there. It's actually higher than a lot of those modules that you typically find on the market on the gaming desktop side. And actually you can see right here, it's booting into Windows without any problems. So cut to now, and we've been running a memory test for a couple of minutes, and you're going to see here, system is running perfectly fine at 4,800, even though it booted at 3,200. But I also want to talk about what this means for performance. Are you losing anything by using these adapters and SODIMM versus standard desktop memory? So we're going to break this down into two separate sections. Best case scenarios with desktop DDR5 running up to DDR5 6000 and two different SODIMM setups running at DDR5 4800, one with the out-of-box timings and the other manually set to run at CL26. We're using the highest end system possible, running at 1080p to highlight any performance bottlenecks there might be when running laptop memory through an adapter on a desktop system. So what is the answer here? It's no. There's absolutely no performance trade-offs. Even with a 5090 and 9800 X3D running at a lower resolution, which could introduce significant CPU limitations, all of these setups gave just about equal performance. I mean, sure, there are some situations where the adapter setup running at 4800 gets very narrowly beaten by the desktop running at 6000, but that 5 to 7% would be imperceptible on screen. And yes, manually tightening the timings on SODIMM modules pretty much negates that advantage too. I mean, yes, sure, I'm going to talk to the people, the negative Nancys out there, who are going to say there's going to be absolutely some areas where these SODIMMs sort of like fall flat on their faces. Yes, there will be outlying situations that have that, but here we have like 99% of the performance of desktop memory, and a lot cheaper too, by simply using this solution. Full core workloads in rendering apps aren't impacted either, at least not for the most part. But again, there are bound to be some outlying situations out there which just love faster memory. Most NLEs fall into that category. They need the absolute fastest memory possible. But even then, it's not like the SODIMM setups were detrimental to performance. Render times increased, but not to the point where the render was completely bogged down. And look, if it works that well on a high-end system with a 9800 X3D, the amount of performance difference on a lower-end system, a mid-range system with like a 9600X like we have here, and say a 9060 XT, will be even less. But with that being said, I do have some recommendations to help you make the best decision here. Based on performance numbers, we don't recommend that you spend more on DDR5 5600 if you don't absolutely want to. And if you want to manually tweak things just a bit, well, the Samsung and Hynix DDR5 4800 SODIMMs can all overclock to 5200 to 5400 mega transfers per second. And even the rarer Micron ones shouldn't have any problems reaching 5200 either. But if you find a good price on used 5600 modules, then absolutely go for it. And look, yes, you can get more headroom by manually modifying signal termination and drive strength settings. But we didn't want to get into that in this video. This is more of a plug-and-play solution. So think of this sort of like a spare tire on your car. You only use it when you absolutely positively need it to get from point A to point B. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this quick video. I hope that you got at least some really good advice here, not to be scared to go into these used markets. Search out what is available to you to hit your budget. In addition to that, this is just like the tip of the iceberg. We're going to continue trying to find solutions for you guys to save some money in the in the pastime that we all love, and that's PC building and gaming. We are not going to let AI ruin it for us or for you. Have a great day, guys.